Oscar and Ben, Stories and Pictures by Sean Perkins. This is the story of Oscar and Ben who sneak out each night to their woodland den. This is Oscar and Ben, but never earlier than 10:30, for their fun and laughter was saved until then. Only when the moon poured its light on their door would the two cats wake up to go out and explore. "It's 10:30, said Oscar to Ben, and swoosh! Through the door they would roar past the store. Over gardens and hills they'd race and they'd soar, until they reached their woodland den shortly after 10:30. And there inside their den the cats would chatter and natter and eat fish in batter, until they agreed on the serious matter of how best to have fun before the rising sun. "Let's run before the fun," said Oscar to Ben, and into the woods the two cats ran. But soon after that the fun really began. "Hush," said Oscar. "Look," said Ben. Up in a tree slept Mrs Hen. Naughty Oscar and Ben climbed up the tree while making the sound of an angry bee. Buzz, buzz. Mrs Hen woke up startled and flew out of her tree, shouting, "Help, help! I'll be stung by a bee!" Oscar and Ben roared with laughter. "Ha ha! It's us," they said. "There's no stinging bee." "You two again?" yelled Mrs Hen. "You no good cats! Get out of my tree!" Oscar and Ben scarpered off laughing. "Let's go to the river bank," said Oscar to Ben. "Be gone with you both," screeched mad Mrs Hen. When they arrived at the river bank, the devious cat spied their next prank. A frog named Hank sat there by the bank. He hummed and threw pebbles and watched as they sank. "Shh," said Oscar. "Quiet," whispered Ben, as the two cats crept up behind Hank, and then a shove and a splash they pushed poor old Hank and into the river he spluttered and sank. "Why would you do that? I nearly sank. It's a good thing I can swim," yelled mad little Hank. Oscar and Ben rolled over with laughter, leaving poor old Hank to shiver and quiver on the bank. On and on the cats would roam until they found the door to an underground home. Inside this tiny house lived a mouse named Sid. "Shh," said Oscar. "Quiet," whispered Ben, as they slid their paws into Sid's house, and then hiss, hiss. "Oh no," thought Sid, "there's a snake in my house." So he kept quiet and hid. Not long after the two cats roared with laughter. "You tricked me," cried Sid. "Yes, we did," said Oscar and Ben, as they laughed and ran off to their woodland den. It had been a long night, and the moon had run out of light to shine and pour on Ben and Oscar's front door. Soon enough the sun had started to soar. Oscar and Ben left their woodland den, over gardens and hills, past the store once again. Silent and sleepy, they were ready to snore when they finally reached their familiar front door. "Yawn," said Oscar. "The day is such a bore." "Let's sleep now," said Ben. "We'll wait for the night and then do it again." But just before the cats could snore, they heard a loud ribbit and sharp claws on the door. "I'm trying to sleep," said Ben. "Was that you?" But before Oscar could answer, there came a cluck, cluck, clucking sound too. They frowned and ignored it and went back to sleep, and then they heard it all again and again until they couldn't stand it anymore. Oscar and Ben looked outside their front door and were suddenly shocked at what they saw: a frog, a hen, and an angry mouse sitting way up on top of their house. Scratch, 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 clawed Sid the mouse. Ribbit, ribbit, yelled Hank the frog. Cluck, 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 cried Mrs. Hen, and then they did it all again and again until the clock struck 10:30. That night, Oscar and Ben were too tired to sneak to their Wonderland den. They didn't even make it past their own front door since they hadn't slept a wink during the day before. But it made them think, and when they finally reached their den, they decided to never make fun of anyone ever again. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more.